Welcome to Voices Amped. Thanks for joining us. I'm Ellie Clark.
And I'm Vanessa Becker Weig, and we are your hosts. Voices Amped is a place for us to share space and lift the voices of artists, activists, community leaders, and organizers, all of whom have inspired us and our work.
For any ampers who aren't familiar with our work, we are Voices Amplified, formerly known as the Girl Project. You can learn more about our arts advocacy work or support us by going to voicesamplified.net. Thanks for listening, and remember, be curious, be courageous,
take up space, and make some noise.
Today on Voices Amplified, we are celebrating our fearless leader, Vanessa Becker Weig's 50th birthday. Happy birthday, Vanessa.
Thank you.
What do you want for your birthday?
Oh, so many things. But something I've been thinking about for several months now when reflecting on this milestone birthday, I thought, what a better way to celebrate than to gather some of my fabulous friends to talk about girl stuff and maybe shed some light for others about our aging journey, the good, the bad, and all the rest. So I reached out to the Voices Amped leadership team and my two longtime friends, Abby Lawson and Carmen Keels, to chat about claiming our power, sex after 30 and 40 and 50. So please be aware that the content is explicit. So parental guidance is suggested. We talk about the big change, ageism, and a few other challenging topics. And like all of our episodes, Abby reads a personal poem about her life story. Jenny reads an inspirational poem, and Carmen shares her musical gifts, dedicating a song to me for my birthday.
As you can imagine, we laughed a lot, but Vanessa, if any listeners out there wanted to help you celebrate your birthday, besides listening to this lovely podcast, how could they do that? How can they help you celebrate?
Well, all I really want for my birthday is to keep making change, keep celebrating and lifting the voices of awesome people, and keep bringing people together. So if anyone out there wants to help me do that, I ask that you donate to Voices Amplified. Now, like most of you, I can't contribute any major gifts right now, but I certainly could find a way to give a few dollars monthly. So my goal is to find 100 people who will give $5 a month to our organization to help us sustain our work. If we've learned anything, it's that a whole bunch of people making contributions, no matter how big or small, adds up. And Fractured Atlas allows us to collect monthly donations. We would rather have more folks involved in giving to us than to try to target a few individuals to give big.
It absolutely represents our community better. And I know I could give $5 a month. So if you want to help Vanessa celebrate her 50th birthday with $5 a month, you can go to our website, voicesamplified.net, and click on the Give Now button, or you can scroll to the footer on our website and click on the Fractured Atlas button. And once you get to Fractured Atlas, select monthly giving and sign up. It's that easy. You will get a shout out on our social media, on one of our podcast episodes, and you will be listed on our website as a way for us to celebrate you.
As always, thanks for listening. We hope you enjoy our explicit girl talk.
Welcome and thanks for listening. This is Voices Amped. I'm Ellie Clark.
And I'm Vanessa Becker Weig, and we are your hosts.
Joining us on the show today are a bevy of badass women hand-chosen by our birthday girl, Vanessa Becker Weig. Vanessa, do you want to introduce us to these women you've hand-selected for today's podcast?
I would be thrilled to. It would be my honor. These women have inspired me throughout my adult life. I share them with all of you, our listeners, as a celebration of my milestone birthday. First, the Voices Amplified leadership team, Ellie, Jenny, and Margaret. These women have been so present for me. They are the ladies who have been instrumental in the creation of Voices Amplified, and they have been my community since moving to Kentucky. But new to the Voices Amped podcast are my oldest sister from another mister. Not necessarily oldest friend, but the friend who I have known the longest, Abby Lawson. Woo! Abby is a fierce mother of 4 children, wife to Jason, an actor and a singer, a theater technician who just before turning 50 a few months ago decided to get her nursing degree.
Wow.
Abby and I met my senior year of high school. Abby is my touchstone, my homegirl, and my biggest advocate, Abby Lawson. Woo-hoo. The godmother of one of my children and New York City tour guide, the zany Carmen Keels. Carmen is a music educator, actor, singer, and Lady Baker. Carmen was in the hit Broadway show In My Life.
Was it a hit?
Well,
People from
Jonathan
New Jersey
Groff in
liked
it,
it.
so that's really special to me and my child. And an international tour of Porgy and Bess before becoming the wife of Michael and mother of 2 equally zany kids. Carmen and I have been friends for I think it's 21 years question mark. Yeah. We met while doing the musical Pippin. She and I both moved a lot, but have still been able to maintain a connection and friendship. She makes me laugh a lot with her down-to-earth wit and realness. Carmen Keel.
Yeah. So I was super pumped when Vanessa mentioned doing a birthday podcast up front. She's like, Ellie, I have a big birthday coming up. I was like, really? Really? Is it a milestone? But talking about aging is such a vulnerable and challenging thing for people, I think, particularly for women. So Vanessa, why was it important to make this podcast when you cringe or whimper a little bit when you talk about this? You've been talking about this milestone birthday for a couple of months, probably because this podcast was happening and you're like, milestone birthday. You make it sound so
Very dramatic.
Why did you want to do this?
I wanted to do it because I really am. I have kind of dreaded turning 50. That's weird to even say those words because, when you think about, I saw somebody posted a meme the other day. All of my high school friends are all turning 50, right, Abby? Everybody's turning 50. So I saw one of them post a meme the other day, and it was what you thought of as 50 when you were a kid versus what 50 is now. And 50 when I was a kid was a golden girl. Like Rue McClanahan was 50, right? And now 50 is J-Lo. So
yeah, right.
I've got in my head I'm 50, so I'm Rue McClanahan. And then I also have in my mind, well, I'm turning 50. I need to get my ass in gear and look like J-Lo, right? So it's just been a weird time thinking about all of that. And I wanted to do this, number one, because I wanted to celebrate the fabulous people that I have in my life and celebrate turning 50, find ways to celebrate turning 50, especially in a pandemic. And this was perfect. And then the other thing is, aging is weird and no one talks about it. Like, especially for women, there are things that happen that you're like, what the hell is happening? Nobody talked about this to me. My mom didn't talk about it to me. Nobody talked about it to her. So we don't talk about these things. So I feel like it's important for us to talk about it. And who better to talk about it than with your best friends? Like, that's the best people to talk about it with. So
yes. So say it again for the people in the back. What birthday is this, Vanessa?
50. I just need to embrace the fact that I'm turning 50, and I feel better at 50 than I did when I was turning 49. So
let's just start with the youngest and go around and say our ages.
32.
That's Jenny.
Margaret, and I'm 36.
I'm Ellie. I'm 42.
I'm Carmen, and I'm 43. For a minute, I wasn't sure. I thought it was 44, but I'm definitely 43. Yeah, I
Final
checked.
answer.
Yeah.
I'm Abby and I am 50.
Claim it,
Fabulous.
Abby. Claim it.
Yeah. So to me, Vanessa and all of us, I guess, I mean, your energy and your vivacity, I would never stop to consider your age. It doesn't cross my mind when you, Jenny, Margaret, me, we're in a room. I'm not, working on Voices Amplified. I never think of any of us as different ages. Do you all feel that way? Do you have a lot of girlfriends that are younger or older that like age isn't even or do we seem like children to you? Like, do we seem like, I always wonder with my friends who are 10, 15 years older, who I think, oh, we're the same age. I wouldn't even consider. They're like, well, you wouldn't because you're younger. How do you all feel about that with your friends?
I will say that, especially with going back, being in nursing school. So I have this peer group. One just turned 23 on Thursday. One is 23, one is 32, and one is 37. But they have become like my sisters, right? My kids are the same age and I have one that's even older. Um, as two of them, but I really don't, they're just my peers. And I will say that that's probably a newer thing for me because I have been stuck in mom mode. I was a stay-at-home mom, so I was stuck in mom mode and until just this last year. And so maybe I didn't look at that way, but I turned 50 in December, and it's fabulous. And I do like Vanessa, I'm constantly saying 50. I'm 50. When did I get to be 50? But I love saying it. I really do love saying it because I'm just hanging with my homies over here, who are the same age as my kids, but they've really become my homies, and they've taught me a lot. And I love that.
Well, so Abby, I totally can relate. I just went back to school myself, and so, but it's this weird broad range of like, there are people who just finished undergrad and they're 23, 24. And then there are people that are closer to my age. I tend to be on the older end, but but you're right. It sort of feels like we're all in the boat together. I think there are a few friends that I have who are like the age of my younger brother, so we're like 6 years apart, and every so often things happen where I'm just like, really? You know, sometimes it's even like a weird thing like music or just sort of the millennial versus Gen X kind of thing. Um but I've noticed that a little bit lately just with like parent friends. For the most part, we're all in kind of the same age range, but I have a few friends where I'm just like, well, so let me help you think about this. And I feel like there's a moment where I feel like I'm I'm not necessarily like I'm the older person and I have to like be the grown up.
I would say I love being around all different ages. So it doesn't bother me, or I don't really think about it except maybe in regards to my kids, because Abby, you are the only one of my close circle of friends who had kids like before me, because I was the one that had the kids first. Like, I mean, most of my friends either don't have kids or, I mean, even Carmen. I mean, she's younger than me, but still had kids, when my kids were teenagers. So for me, that's been only the weird measure, because a lot of my kids' parents are a lot older than me, so I didn't always make connections with my kids' parents, make friends with them. Really, the only person who was kind of on that same track in my circle is Abby. So that's really the only time, but most of the time I I take value from everybody's age. I love to know the opinions of the millennials. Margaret, you're a millennial too, aren't you? Are you a millennial?
I'm what is called an elder millennial. I am at the beginning of the
Elder millennial.
there's a comedian, I'm not remembering her name, Eliza something or other. Schlesinger, thank you, Jenny. Elder Millennial is her comedy special. And I thought that was this perfect. That is exactly my demographic.
That's funny.
So I really treasure, and I like to know the opinions and what Gen Z is thinking. Obviously, I do because I'm around them all the time. But so yeah, I don't think it's ever been something that's bothered me, and I do tend to be the motherly one, but I think I've been the motherly one since I was in high school. So
Jenny, how does it feel for you being the baby? Margaret, how does it feel for you? I mean, Margaret and I aren't too far, 6 years, 5 years. So it doesn't feel, I don't feel like Jenny, you're far apart, but maybe you and Vanessa being closer to 18 years apart, you do feel that way.
it's 17 years I counted.
Excuse me. I'm so sorry.
Your mom, this is fun. No, this is fun for me because your mom, Ellie, is 17 years older than me.
Oh, fascinating.
Yeah.
I am 17 years older than Jenny. I calculated this at some point when we were all working together because that's the way my mind thinks.
I think for me, like, this is when honestly being an only child has worked super in my favor, is because my parents put me around everybody, starting from when I was itty bitty. And so, and they were not shy about, you're going to talk to this person. Doesn't matter if you're 3 or 4 years old, you are going to talk to them. And you be expected to hold not hold a super in-depth conversation. I mean, you're 3, but, but to go up and to introduce myself and to kind of remove that like pressure, I guess, when I encounter, I'm to the point now where when I encounter, I'm seeing someone treating me differently because I am younger than them, or because like they expect me to behave a certain way towards them because I'm younger. That is actually weirder to me than just being myself and approaching someone exactly where I am and meeting them exactly how they are, with where I am now. And I think like with, working with Vanessa for a number of years, sometimes that age difference did come out, but I think it was in the really great way of how women's friendships can be so fluid with one another. Like one minute we are colleagues, and then being able to shift pretty naturally into a understandably mentoring capacity where, you're 32. There are things you have not like experienced yet or done that Vanessa, just for the sake of like career and having been alive longer than you, that she has a perspective on this that you just don't. So to me, I think it's a blend of like, this is my background and this was my exposure to it, but also, being able to slip into those roles in and out really naturally and not have an ego about it.
Mm-hmm.
I 100% agree with. I think that's one of the amazing elements of long-term and multifaceted women's friendships is the ability to be lots of different kinds of things to each other as we and also to not get hung up on like hierarchy of whatever, like whoever's career is more prestigious or what, like we can all be in position of teacher and learner because we're all trying to like build each other up. And I feel like that's the case when we're working with a lot of like with the Girl Project and other youth kinds of programs. It is, you're in the teacher role, but you're also, they have a lot to teach you and you're all in the project of building each other up. But something that else I've been really thinking about a lot is, how much, especially in my current learning environment where I'm going through kind of a formation process to become ordained as a deacon. I mean, so many of the people I'm hanging out with in the Episcopal Church. And so Episcopal Church, right? And so it's a lot of folks in their 70s and 80s, and some of whom are peers in ways because of shared experiences and ways that are the threads of our life stories have woven in similar ways, maybe not at the same time, but I'm thinking of someone in particular, Janelle Staley, shout out to you. Maybe we'll get you on the podcast at one point. She's been an English professor for 30 plus years here, was at Lafayette and all of that. Just to be able to connect with someone who is in her 80s, who I think about and talk to as if we were like BFFs as high schoolers, because we have so many similarities in where we're at right now. I don't know, I'm just really valuing that intergenerational adaptability and flexibility. If you can just be open and, like Jenny said, not be like ego about it, and because we all have so much to learn from each other, right? Especially as we're navigating all these generational currents, and how different it is to be Gen Z versus millennial versus, it is we're in a transformative time of accelerated like generational psychology change, and we got to lean on each other to figure out what the hell's going on.
So this is Abby. I don't know if I have to say that when I speak, but it's so funny listening to you say that, Margaret, because I was going over the little questions that were sent out, and a couple of things you said exactly. The one of the questions was greatest piece of advice ever given that I've ever gotten. Can I jump to that?
Yes, please.
Oh,
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Was learn to lean. And the big thing about that is, as women, I think oftentimes for me growing up, it was often like, if you're leaning on someone, you're being weak, or there are certain things you should be able to shoulder on your own. But as women, I really feel like that's such amazing advice, because we absolutely have to lean on one another, right? For so many things and aspects, just going up. The times I've leaned on Vanessa, from high school and up, I can tell you are just astronomical. And another thing that you said, the exact words, I'm just jumping to it, was the superpower. Now, this took me a lot of thought, but adaptation, I would say, is my superpower. And it's because throughout my life, it just feels like if you cannot adapt, you're in big trouble. And I feel like as women, especially, I think of my husband, and he can just let stuff roll off, and I'll just be stuck in it, or whatever. And then when I learn to adapt to whatever it is, and I feel myself growing and that kind of thing. So
I do want to move this into, and I think we have an interesting group here because Margaret's 36. And she is Dr. Margaret McGladrey with a PhD. Yeah. So she went through this educational process at a young age. So she was young in school, probably. I went back to school like at 35 or 36 to get my master's. I know Abby's just gone back to school. I know Carmen's in school. I'm interested in talking about ageism, and not just old age, right? But being young in a program as well, being women of color, being a white woman, being young, being old, whatever that experience is. I'm interested in hearing what it's been like.
I can start talking and thinking about this a little bit, because I feel like going to grad school it depends so much on your discipline and what the culture of the discipline is, right? So I was the old lady in my master's program because I had worked for 3 years after undergrad before going straight on to school, because everybody else in the master's program rolled straight on through. So I was the only one who was married. I was like, a good 5-6 years older. And that's when I felt like totally the, condescending, like, oh, you young people, you never had a mortgage. Like I was definitely, it was a weird kind of the culture coming into that master's program. So, I felt like in that sense, a certain amount of, but mostly my experience in academia has been of feeling like the fact that I read as young, especially as younger than a lot of the folks who are in positions of leadership. I mean, I work in administration, like I do research administration. So I'm in, meetings with all of these, associate deans for research and these high powered professors and folks who take themselves pretty seriously mostly for good reason. And it's important to be seen as someone whose name you register on the attendee list of a meeting, as opposed to being assumed to be the administrative assistant. So I think that's so much of this in academia is also kind of a condescension from senior women in senior administrative positions, is not necessarily to be in a position of opening doors, although I've experienced some great exceptions, but a lot of my experience has been like, I suffered in this way, so you're going to suffer also. That's part of toughening you up for what this business is. And I just reject that in any profession, right? That we can't make things better for the next group of people coming up, especially in as environments as toxic as research administration can be, with all the money and power in those spaces.
I have a weird relationship with school. I didn't think that I was ever going to go back to school because I don't like school, nor do I do it very well. And I think that like the years of like teaching experience and stuff that I've had up to this point has helped me, like, the education classes, that kind of thing. I mean, but I have a very checkered educational past. I went to 5 different schools for undergrad. And I went to college in 1995, but I didn't graduate with my bachelor's, with my BS degree until 2010. So there were some times when I was at some schools that I was very much older then, because they always really liked having me start over again as a freshman. So I was a freshman a lot, at least 3 times. Well, the first time I was a freshman, it's very possible that, being the only Black person in my class of 21, as a freshman musical theater major at a fancy conservatory, I think that I didn't know it at the time, but I know it now, that I kind of was doomed from the start in that situation. And that's unfortunate. I think that there are things in those kinds of programs that are changing for the brown people. I just wish they'd changed, like, when I was there. I mean, that's kind of another topic. That's like,
Well, I actually would love to sidetrack on that topic just a little bit, Carmen, because I think it's a really relevant topic right now. That people are being, that organizations are being called out on, and I think it's important. But I know you talked with me a lot about people just making assumptions that they look at you and they're like, oh, well, she can sing all of these poppy, and you're like, no, I want to sing Christine Daae, like.
yeah.
So
I'm too old for that now.
well, so do you want to add a little bit to that?
It's not legal for someone behind the audition table to say, oh, well, can't you just, like, what are you? Like, what are you? They're not allowed to do that. They do it a lot, though. I mean, maybe not now because they'd really, really get fired, but maybe. I've been in a sitz probe for Broadway and had the director, well, look at you. You should be able to sing that riff. I mean, look at you. And thank God the music director was like, listen, crazy Joe Brooks. You hired her to be an opera singer. Like, and at that point I was like, well, yeah, I mean, I could have done that. But it's not like, but that wasn't the point in the moment, I just sort of moved through the world kind of expecting it, and sort of feeling thankful that now, as an adult, like, not 20 something person who has children who, I don't know, I guess my kids mostly, they look mostly white, but they don't identify that way. And our friend group here is so multi-ethnic that makes me feel like I'm that's okay. Like, I'm okay. We're okay. Everything's okay. We're all fine. Everything's fine. We're going to be fine. But I mean, that helps. Like, and it feels so different when I go to, say, Ohio and I'm in Columbus or Cleveland with our families. And it's not, unless we're in our insular, like my family group, or maybe our one group of friends or one family that we're friends with in Cleveland, like, we're the odd ones out wherever we go. And one of the things that I'm thankful for about living in New York and the neighborhood that we live in is that we're not. And this is very comforting.
Mm-hmm.
Very comforting.
I didn't finish my BSN. So, and like Carmen, I have been in a lot of programs and started and at one point would have been a junior status because I went to college, in 1989. And so that's, but I didn't finish. And for over the years, because of health or family, money, what have you, I never finished. And there was a time that I just thought that I never would. So going back to school now, I'm in a very different place. Last year, my life changed so much. So and when I say that, it's just almost unbelievable. I had bariatric surgery. So I lost 100 pounds over the last year, just celebrated my 1-year anniversary for my surgery date. And but it's not just the weight, it's the health aspects of it too that changed my life. In that, I started to see other changes as well in energy and attitude, in perspective. When my youngest went to college, and she is a sophomore in college now, I entered a time of depression and thought, what is my life? Right? Because I just identified so much as being a wife and a mother. So going back to school now, and I talked about my little homies at school. They just teach me so much, and they don't just teach me about school. God knows I need them for the technology. Are you kidding me right now? Because we had typewriters when I went to college. And so trying to do anything on computer, and I was a stay-at-home mom, so I'm not accustomed to working on computers at all. I didn't even have a laptop until I went to nursing school in October. So they teach me a lot every day about those kinds of things, but they also teach me a lot about how they look at the world, and it has changed the way I relate to my own children. I don't relate to my peers as children, but it does allow me to get a different perspective on how my children are seeing the world, right? Because they're the same age. And it has given me a broader perspective and appreciation for where they being my kids, are in their lives. And I appreciate that so much. I love that. And it's been a beautiful thing. My children, as far as now, I will say the nursing program that I am in, it is an accelerated program. So because I had so many college credits, I was able to test out of what they have is the LPN program and go straight into the RN program. And so I am in that. It is very diverse, a program, racially and also with gender. So that feels really good. I will say that, so I'm adopted, and my family, I grew up with white hippies, if I can say that. But absolute hippies. I mean, we lived in a circus tent. I kid you not. So
in Kentucky, right?
In Kentucky.
I love it.
Yes, I did. And I really struggled most of my life with being biracial and what that means. And then when I moved to Ohio, I had more issues, with the Black community than I did with any other. And so that is an unfortunate thing. But fast forwarding to today and the times that we're living in now, and what I appreciate about how I'm starting to, perceive my kids, because I've always been that odd person in my family being my husband and my children, because my husband is Black. They all identify as Black, as they should. Well, one of them is a little off on a limb right now, but we won't talk about him right now. But he's not sure how he identifies. It's fine. But everyone's journey is their own. So that's one thing that I'm learning, and I'm learning to see things through their eyes more, which is really good, because my perception has been a little skewed as a minority. And my husband is in a job. He is the vice president of human resources, and he's also on this national committee for diversity in human resources. And so diversity is constant in our household. We're constantly talking about it. And but as it relates to me and ageism, I will say that I'm just at my age learning so much about what diversity means and how it affects us. And it's a little embarrassing to say, at 50, it really making a huge impact on me. Not that it hasn't. I mean, I grew up in Kentucky, okay, with hippies. But I'm starting to see it in a different light and everything. And I'm thrilled that at my age, I can still be learning and growing in that way.
I love that so much, to see that happening for you, Abby, from being someone who has been your friend for a long time. And seeing that growth happening. I mean, we all grow, but just knowing that, it was like, here you are at 50 and you're having, I mean, you really have inspired me in a lot of ways. When all of this pandemic craziness started, and you came to visit back in July, you really inspired me, just because I was watching this major metamorphosis happening. And I wanted to make sure that I told you that, because you have always been so generous with compliments with me and how I inspire you. But I need you to know how much you inspire me, seeing this transformation happen. And I'm not talking physical. I mean, the physical is great, because I know that health has always just been such an issue, and I've helped you through that your whole adult life. But there's that, of course, but then there's just this mental transition it's just so joyful to watch.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It is like being a different person. And I was so excited about this ageism, and 50's fabulous, Vanessa. And the thing about it is just that you get, or at least for me, I got into a rut thinking this is how life is going to be, right? This is how it plays out. This absolutely not. Absolutely. And I'm here to tell you that exactly 1 year ago today, my surgery was on February 10th. So say we're on February 20th, 2020. I wasn't thinking about going to nursing school. I was like, okay, did I have this surgery? Is it going to happen? How's it? I couldn't have envisioned the person that I am now, even just exactly 1 year ago today. And it's just exciting, because I have learned, and I'm still learning, that there's so much life to be had, right? And there's so much to do, and there's so many ways in which we can change ourselves, and not just ourselves, but our whole orb around us, and our community, and what else is there out there for us to contribute.
Vanessa, you mentioned earlier that lots of things are happening, and nobody told you about them. Would those happen to be the dreaded M word things?
Okay, that's worse than the F word 50. Okay.
Menopause.
Because
Menopause.
Oh.
I was like, what's the M word?
the M word. Yes. So yeah, I mean, no one talks to you about these horrible things that change, and the horrible going from 1 month to like gushing and having to change 15 times in any given day because you're just gushing, to then the next month of thinking, oh my God, there's no way I could be pregnant. There's no way I could be pregnant.
No, too old to be pregnant.
Well,
You know?
Are you?
Not actually.
Yeah.
But
I know, Abby, but
I'm sorry.
So, and then, but I mean, I really didn't know anything about it. I also didn't know, like, I know that, Abby and Carmen, we've talked about this some, just the whole perimenopause idea. Like, apparently I've been in that for 10 freaking years and I didn't know what was going on. I had no idea. And all the changes that start happening with just weird stuff like stomach stuff. And I know Carmen you're like your voice and all of these different things. I haven't really been having hot flashes, but I've definitely had like just, my sleep is funky, just all of these weird things. And how I've been battling it is exercise and diet. And I just wish that I would have been doing that more during perimenopause. So all of you who haven't gone into your perimenopause yet,
Tell us, Perry, what does that mean?
oh, it
It's
ain't.
For listeners who don't know what it means.
Carmen, you're probably in the middle of it. So why don't you talk about it?
Oh, Jesus. I'll just say the last couple of doctor's appointments, my doctor, who's sort of like Glinda the Good Witch of lady parts. She's very tall and she has this glamorous hair, but she's like 60. Or maybe, I don't know. Anyway, she was like, well, my darling, it's just going to be this way for a while. And eventually, everything will be better again. So, sometimes I have hot flashes, but they're not hot. They're not like what they talk about on TV necessarily. Like where all this, like there. I think it's different for everybody. But sometimes I just can't. Like I'm just really hot. I can't. I'm not like hot. Like I don't have a fever. Just hot everywhere. But it's not a regular thing. Like when you're in perimenopause, it can last 10 years, 15 years, a long time. And there's this gushing thing. I keep extra underwear in my desk in my office. My iron gets so low that I'm just sort of angry all the time. I have 2 videos. I have this crazy YouTube channel that for my students, and I have 2 videos that I feel like I need to redo because I look so pale. I didn't realize that it was because like at the time, then I like went to the doctor soon after these things were made. I realized that my iron was so low. I'm just like completely washed out. Like I'm not a pale person. Mm-hmm. And, so I have to, take iron. My hair does weird things. It's very thin. I've never had thick hair anyway. So I grew it out so that I don't just look bald. Nails, skin. But the weirdest thing is that I really identify with 7th grade girls right now. Because my voice is changing.
So my experience is different, right? Because I had to have a hysterectomy and then a double oophorectomy when I was 33. So that put me into immediate menopause. So I've been in menopause for 17 years. Now I am on my way out, praise the Lord. But I will tell you that some voice changes, absolutely. Nails, hair, absolutely. Hot flashes, it feels like an internal flame. Those are things I feel like we hear about, right? We all talk
skin.
Oh,
itchy
yes.
skin? Okay.
Oh, because the moisture in your skin, right, changes. And those are some of the things that you do hear about with menopause. Some things you don't hear about are vaginal dryness. Okay. Your sex drive, right? And you're tired or you're low. And that is it, right? Because, well, first of all, who wants to have sex with a dry vagina? Not me.
Not me.
Number one. Okay. And
No.
my husband doesn't want that either. Thank you. And also, but it is a big deal, right? Because we go through things in our lives that changes our libido. And then to have the hormones also coming into play and affecting that. Mentally, we may not, we would love to be there some days. Not every day, but some days you want to be there, and physically you can't. You're tired, your iron is low, you have a dry vagina. There's just a lot going on, right, that plays into that. And it takes some adjustment. And then on top of that, spending years that way, it affects us. Yeah. And I think those are pieces that we don't talk about as women. We don't talk about how it affects those things, and then how it affects our relationships. We talk about moods, right? But the mood swings, and I'm a mood swinger. So, but when you add
I've become crazy. I'm crazy. I'm a crazy person.
And I think we both had those tendencies prior to.
Yeah.
Menopause.
I mean,
that's not
right?
Menopause.
Yeah.
Right. That's not,
no.
But you add menopause on top of it, right? And then you find yourself saying things to your spouse or your children that you might not. And yeah, those are.
I'm curious, like, okay, so I have noticed definitely some moodiness. Like I'm really truly dialing in on the moodiness, especially of course being directed at my poor unassuming husband. but I will stop.
Husbands.
What?
We have very nice husbands.
We do have very nice husbands. And I'll just be like, Eric, something will just come out of me, or a look. I think you all know that I can really shoot a look. And a look will come across, and I'll just say, I'll stop and I'll go, okay, I'm really sorry. I need you to know that that's just, I can't control it right now. I'm just really having a difficult time, and I've gotten really good at acknowledging it. I think I'm better now at kind of acknowledging it and realizing, oh, wait a second, that's what this is. Let me understand this. The iron thing that you all are talking about, like, I thought all kinds of crazy stuff was going on until so they put me on iron supplements. But one of the things that I'm curious about. Let's talk about sex, baby. Let's
I don't want to have it ever.
You don't what? You don't want to have it ever?
No, not really. No.
Really?
Yeah.
It hasn't.
Is that new?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just wondering. Okay.
Are you asking based on like the start history, or no? It's just kind of new. I mean, I do because I do it for the good of the team.
I have not been experiencing that as much, just because I'm in a very loving relationship. So that part has not suffered a whole lot yet. So I feel fortunate now. All the tired and the iron and the this and the that, like if that's going on, just don't even try, but I haven't really lost that yet.
I just wonder how you know the difference. I mean, obviously dry vagina is hard for anybody, but what is the difference between probably none of us have had a first kiss in a very long time, unless it was on stage and it was, you have the same partner for 12, 25, 30, 40 years. Like, what's the ebb and flow of sex anyway? And then you add in this really complicated this really complicated change that's happening for women that nobody wants to talk about, right?
Mhm.
So how does that affect sex too? Like even Jenny and Margaret, like, okay, and I don't think I'm started menopause. My mom's been warning me. I started at 40. It came for me at 40. It came, and I'm like, Mom, I appreciate it, but I don't have any of that yet, knock on wood. But we, still the sex conversation and the ebb and flow of relationships once they're in, advanced stages. Sex is interesting, right?
Mhm.
Not
Yeah.
to not to stop Martin to step on what Jenny and Margaret have to say, but I think that it gets better the more you get to know someone, and the more I've been married for 27 years. The more you get to know someone and they get to know you, I feel like for me the intimacy just it gets better.
Mm.
It's not to say I want to do it all the time, but I don't think it's about menopause. Life ebbs and flows, right? And so so do our sex lives and whatever's happening within our lives. But I think that intimacy is about getting to know someone, and the more you know them, the better it gets.
Do any of you, I mean, do you struggle at all for yourself with like, is your self-esteem? Because I feel like if that isn't working as much in a relationship, it's a cycle for me. So it's like if that's not really happening, it has an effect on my self-esteem and definitely his. And then that only makes me not want to be intimate because my self-esteem is low. So then you continue on. It's just this constant cycle. So part of, for me, why it's become a thing that is important that I try to embrace is it really is such a vicious cycle with my self-esteem if that is not something that if that connection isn't happening. Not to say that it's like happening all the time, but I mean trying to make it fairly regular and somewhat consistent just helps both of us, I think, feel closer and also feel better about ourselves.
Yeah, like it's not this thing of like, I mean, you never want it to be this thing of like synchronized watches. Are we ready? Let's go. Like
That
that's not
time,
the
let's
thing.
go.
Oh God. But I think that, with relationships, like the ebb and flow of it, there kind of comes a point where you recognize of like, hey, we need to like go ahead and break this cycle, like this, ebb that we've been experiencing. Like let's start with movie cuddle. Like what are the other ways in which like our physical intimacy, like beyond just sex, but like the familiarity of like holding each other, being in contact with one another, things like that like I think you kind of take for granted. You can easily slip into like almost a roommate mode, and being like, okay, so we need to dial it back because we're at this point where it's not doing either of us any good and we're in this friction point. Let's find our way back to one another.
Yeah.
And no, we don't have to synchronize watches, but let's make sure to prioritize each other in this so that like that connection is there.
Mhm.
Well, Carmen, one thing I wanted to point out with what you've talked about, I've thought about what you were saying sitting here, but because you are in that place too with, two young kids. I
Mm.
mean, because when I was in that place with two young kids, I was tired. I mean, working a
Yeah.
full-time job, taking care of the kids. It's like,
Yeah, and I think, and to be honest, it could be more of that, like the perimenopausal piece uh, is a small part of a greater like thing. Like, and I definitely like there are those moments where we kind of realize, oh yeah, we got to come back to this, we got to fix that. Like Michael and I have both had enough therapy to know that. And we've been married before. Like we know from before.
Yeah.
So, two kids, a pandemic, and a 900 square foot apartment is not really conducive to like anything.
I mean,
Ooh.
That's a whole other element.
I mean,
forgot
I
about.
am just done. We're fully vaccinated. So we're almost ready to just be like, you know what? Just you do some stuff. We're going around the corner to the bar. Like not I mean, forget about the sex part. Like
Right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
get away from me. Like from the children.
Mhm, mhm.
I don't want to hear about your fidgets. And I don't want to hear about slime. And I already took you to the slime museum. I got a lot of slime in my house.
Mm.
I just, want to go and get drunk with your dad. Put yourself to bed. But I mean, like, we're not going to do that. We have not been comfortable eating inside. Like, New York City, like, right now, like, outside is like these weird little tents. I mean, everything is just still very strange. Um, and, for 3 months, we only left the house for 30 minutes a day. So, we left the house to walk the children and the dog. We're just in sort of extraordinary times right now, and we do have to do kind of what Jenny said, in a different way than than we used to, maybe. Like right now, all of the Facebook memories from last February are popping up, and like we went to the opera, went to all these shows. We had so many tickets to so many things because we decided like a year ago, we're like, we can do this. We can afford this now. We're gonna just make a point to see as many things as we want to see. There's just so much to do, and one of the things that we've always kind of prided ourselves on is we take advantage of the city that we're living in.
Yeah.
New York City is an extraordinary place, and we want to experience it, but we're just in such a strange time.
Margaret, what's it like for you?
Well, I mean, something that was occurring to me as everybody was talking is, Matt and I have been together for 16 years, married for 14.
And how young were you when you got married?
I was 21 and he's 12.
So you were a baby.
I was baby. Yeah, baby. But also, always like an 80-year-old trapped into whatever. My name's Margaret, for God's sake, remember. And Matt is 12 years older than me as well, right? So there's lots of interesting generational age things going there. But what occurred to me with what both Jenny and Vanessa, as well as what Carmen was saying, is in terms of these, when you're in a committed long-term relationship, these different kinds of ebbs and flows, especially if they're based on context like the pandemic year, you're in it together, and there will be change, because that is the only thing that is certain with any of this I've been reading the book, The Parable of the Sower by Octavia Butler. And one of the key phrases from the Earthseed religion that the protagonist develops is God is change, right? It's kind of her. And it's very much a pandemic kind of book to a certain extent. So I recommend that to everybody, because it's also thinking about age and what you can seed for the next generation. But all that being said, so you have kind of this long view of your relationship and sex in the relationship and what's expected and what's like normal, and that you can evolve and change and grow together. And that's probably maybe the coolest thing, is like being with someone this long. We have seen each other change so much, not just emotionally, spiritually, for sure, but also physically. Like physically, we've changed a lot. When we got together, I was still anorexic. I had like no boobs. It was a cup, right? Like, so my body, and I've aged, of course, but Matt has also aged. And that's also an interesting thing, having the body image stuff that Vanessa was talking about. I mean, I've dealt with an eating disorder throughout, so I've had my own body image issues, but Matt also has his right to have body image issues and not feel good about himself, as he's gray hair, his body is changing, his hormones are changing. He's in a different place than I am about that. So I can't be all like, I have it's triggering for me. No, he has a right to have like the body image issues too. So I think that's a really interesting element with, what we talk about, these different kinds of patriarchal body image ideas. But when you're in an actual intimate relationship with someone who is also, we're all dealing with these kinds of pressures together, and what we expect of each other, and what even if, and one of the other things we notice and observe with each other is it's so, sometimes your own sense of your own body image and how you're feeling about yourself sexually is more important than even you can't always receive the attraction from your partner, right? And that can be hard too, is to feel like I should be able to make you feel better about yourself, like I can help you transcend all this, the hormonal crap, whatever you're dealing with your body, that it's somehow my responsibility as your partner to like get you going or whatever, so I think it's just so, in a long-term relationship, it's just really complex, and there's a lot of ways that we change together, and our expectations of sex change together too, and I just feel like pandemic in particular has made the long-term nature of all of this, like we're going to see everything together, out of each other's bodies, out of each other's heads, hearts, like that's what this is about, and this kind of intimacy, and I think we've all really in different ways had to dig into that. So yeah.
I would love for each of you, just at the age that you're at, um, any advice you want to give to our listeners about claiming your space, claiming who you are, whether it be age, being a woman, being a professional, any advice you can give about claiming your space?
Okay. I'll go first. I have some thoughts about this. So, when I was younger, and I still find this a issue of mine, but I think it's important to not apologize for yourself. Like, not to say sorry. Um, and and I think that helps claim like your space and who you are. Also, after my divorce, my grandmother told me that it was very important to have a team of boyfriends. She didn't get specific. She just said it's important to have a team because you use them for different things. So, 20 somethings out there, just take that with, whatever. If you like girls, a team of girlfriends. She was in her 90s when she gave me that advice. But I think it's important. So yeah, and do not apologize. Julia Child dropped a chicken on the floor on television, picked it up, and served it anyway. So, no apologies.
I'm going to love that. I love that. I love the don't apologize. It's something that I struggle with all the time. So thank you for that. Also, I'm going to say seek fulfillment. And listen, no matter what age you are. So this is something I'm really learning to do. And it's transporting my life. I'm also working on that with my children. And they are not going in the directions that I had written out for them to go, right? But my biggest hope and desire for them when they were born was happiness and fulfillment. And I'm learning that your fulfillment is not how I see it, because it's yours. And so however that looks for you, own that individually and find the ways that you can make that happen, because to me that's how you measure success. Going off of one of the little questions you sent is fulfillment, and we find it in various ways, and we have to find it as individuals.
I'm going to add on to Abby's of, just it's essential to take that time for yourself, that, that time of your 20s, your formative years and things like that. It is so important to be selfish with those. The things that our society kind of teaches you to value, or that you need to have in order to be considered successful, those are often the things that don't matter, because it deprioritizes what you want and what the vision that you have for yourself. And I think those years are so crucial for being with yourself, so that you know what you want, who you are, and what you're about, and going for those fearlessly.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what I'm hearing is this kind of idea of sovereignty, and that you, as an agent of your own life, get to write the script, right? It doesn't have to follow the beats that are expected. So I think that's helpful advice to think about, is that you really do get to write what your timing of things. There is no right time. You're not behind like that. I had that sense so strongly in my 20s in particular. If I don't do this by this age, then what? So for me, it's that, and I guess what I've been thinking about lately, and I probably talked about this already on our earlier conversation, is that nothing that you'll ever do is more important or worthy than who you just are. You don't have to do and produce to be worthy of time and space and attention. Just being and showing up and presence it's not just enough, it's everything.
I needed to hear that, Margaret. Thank you. I totally needed to hear that. And the being present part of it, and not I I've spent much of my life worrying about what happens next, what happens next, what happens next. And I feel like just now am I starting to really learn how to be present and not and embrace where I'm at right now. And especially right now, I really don't have any choice but to embrace that I'm turning 50.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to not, well, I mean, I still am trying to embrace and find mindfulness and meditation, but letting other people determine your value is the most awful thing. Like, am I less valuable because I'm an artist? Am I less valuable because I don't have a master's degree? Am I less valuable because it just, I love the idea of letting yourself fail, and how much smarter and more valuable you are if you know what it's like to face failure. It actually makes you better, smarter, more compelling, more beautiful, more thoughtful towards others, more empathetic. Like, failure and challenges and finding value in yourself and learning to value yourself is such a challenging journey, I think. Maybe less for some than others, but pick up the habit of mindfulness and look in the mirror every day. And the words you say to yourself are the things you're going to believe. So learn how to speak kindly to yourself and find yourself valuable, because people will go away. People won't always be there, but you will always be there. So if you learn to value yourself, you're good to go.
Can I just jump on that real quick, Ellie, because the failure thing, the piece of it. So I have an extreme fear of failure, and it has dictated, the majority of my life. And so I wrote down this question that you guys threw out there about how do you measure failure. And one thing that I am working very diligently to do is to stop with the word failure and look at things that didn't quite go the way I wanted them to or I needed them to as growth and learning opportunities, and not necessarily. For me, failure is and not for everyone, but for me, failure feels very negative and heavy. And I have allowed what other people's version of failure to be laid on me, and like to wear it like a lead coat. So now I'm trying to be like, okay, just something as little as I didn't get an A, which an A in nursing school is a 95, which is ridiculous, but whatever. I didn't get an A on that quiz right there, but I didn't fail. What I learned was I needed to spend more time studying this, or I needed to prioritize. Do you know what I'm saying? So I
Language and
want,
perspective.
but yeah, and like what you're saying, like be kind to the words that you're saying to yourself. And I'm still learning how to do that. And I want my children and younger people to know that, listen, don't look at it as a failure. This is growth, man. Grab it and know that you're going to learn more out of failures or things that don't go your way, for sure.
Thank you all. Thank you for sharing that with the listeners and me. I appreciate it. um, I think we're going to be moving on. Ellie, are we ready?
Take it away.
Uh, Campfire is a moment for our guests to share inspiration with our listeners and us. The campfire represents storytelling in an intimate setting that is unique to the people who are present. In our activism work, we refer to this as the closed container or circling. Today, we're going to have Abby and Carmen, who are new to the Voices Amped experience. And, the really only instructions that were given is they could, share a piece that was inspiring to them, or a gift of advice to me, or whatever that is. So I know that Abby is going to be sharing a poem today, and it's on some personal experiences. So Abby, we're ready for you whenever you are.
Okay. So I would like to say that the Girl Project has always inspired me. Now, I am not a poet, folks. So I want to just put that out there. It's just a little thing about my life, and that's it. So here it goes. It's called Someday. Each of us has a tale, a snapshot of who we are, a short little synopsis that tells those around us where we've been and what's happened so far. My life is an interesting story filled with suffering and glory. And though things haunt me today, which I often find hard to say, I've learned to rely on tomorrow. Those whom he tasked to protect me chose to ignore their role. I was a confused little girl who in my heart had a hole, and I went through childhood very afraid. I would sit all alone and cry, sadly wondering why she chose to give birth without measuring my worth, perhaps wishing that I would just die. I was given to people who wanted to help, just not specifically me. All my siblings had use and didn't suffer abuse, our lives as vast as the sea. Abuse shapes one's foundation when suffered at an early age. I'd love to escape the scars it created and move on to the healed stage. The teen years were a bit kinder, but I became part of some ugly stats. Pregnancy, abortion, or overdose scare. Does it get much worse than that? I'd love to say college was easier, but I didn't make it through. I was broken and struggling and on my own, lost, not knowing what I should do. Now, here's where the glory comes into my story. A gift from heaven above, God sent me a life-altering, perfect, sensational, unbelievable love. 5 amazing miracles happened that outlined my purpose in life. God showed me his love, allowing me to become a mother as well as a wife. I hope to get to forgiving, but I still feel entombed by the past. I'd like to move on, pain, shame. I'd like to move on, painful memories all gone. Pain, shame, and sorrow no more holding fast. I'm not sure how my story continues. I'm still getting to know and love me. It seemed easier to hide pain and suffering inside, but by doing that, I will never be free. Positivity counts in undeniable amounts. I know this fact to be true. Though I may laugh and or cry, I want to hold my head high and feel proud standing in my own shoes someday. Today. That's it. I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry. Thank you. If you're not watching it on the YouTube, if you're watching it on YouTube, you see what messes, Ellie's the crier. I'm not usually the crier.
Really?
Crier.
Well, I am a crier.
Right.
You're right. And I've just been given a little message that Jenny has something to share too.
Surprise.
Yay.
So this is a poem that I read last year during a pretty challenging and transformative time, and it means a lot to me. It is called You Learn by Jorge Luis Borges. I probably butchered the last name, but that's okay. We're trying, we're growing. So After a while, you learn the subtle difference between holding a hand and chaining a soul. You learn that love doesn't mean leaning and company doesn't mean security. And you begin to learn that kisses aren't contracts and presents aren't promises. And you begin to accept your defeats with your head up and your eyes open, with the grace of a woman, not the grief of a child. And you learn to build all your roads on today, because tomorrow's ground is too uncertain for plans, and futures have a way of falling down in mid-flight. After a while, you learn that even sunshine burns if you get too much. So you plant your garden and you decorate your own soul instead of waiting for someone to bring you flowers. And you learn that you really can endure, that you really are strong, and you really do have worth. And you learn and you learn. With every goodbye, you learn.
Thank you, Jenny. That was great. I'm going to be like a basket case once we get off here. I'm just going to be crying. Thank you all so much for sharing that with us. All of it was lovely. Ellie, do you want to take us home and get us out of our weepy states?
Oh, I'd love to. I'm so
Rapid
excited.
response.
I need every lady unmuted. Remember, we are going youngest to oldest. Everybody remember your age?
Yes.
I've embraced it. After today, I have embraced my age. I am turning 50 in less than 2 weeks. When this comes out, the day it comes out, I, Vanessa Becker Weig, will be 50.
Yeah, you will.
Fabulous.
Fabulous. Okay, here's our rapid response. What's your favorite sound?
A book opening.
A cat purr.
My nephews Cohen and Torin laughing.
When you take bread out of the oven and it sings.
My kids laughing.
No heartbeat.
What's your biggest regret?
Being too scared to try.
Yeah, that, Jenny. Yeah.
Letting other people determine my value.
Not speaking up about something when I should have.
Not being brave.
Not standing in my own truth.
What's your best feature?
Spider Jen.
Okay, Margaret.
I think my eyes, there's a lot going on. They change colors. Mm-hmm.
My eyes.
Legs.
Smile.
My ankles.
Ooh,
You have great
I love
ankles.
that.
You have awesome ankles.
You're on vacation on a beach. What drink are you holding in your hand?
Margarita.
A margarita. It's my name. Come on now. Yes.
I mean, when we say beach, I guess I have to say margarita too.
A beer.
Chardonnay.
Chardonnay.
Yes.
Chocolate martini.
Ooh, I got sick off those once. Somewhere you haven't been that you would love to adventure solo.
Solo.
Mm-hmm.
Scotland.
Vietnam.
New Zealand?
Spain.
Greece.
Greece.
What about Greece?
Greece. Yeah.
Greece.
Damn.
Is sex better at 25, 35, 45, or 50?
32, but I'm going to say 35. I know I'm not there yet, but it's better than when I was 25.
Yeah, I say whatever age I'm at. 36 is it gets better the longer you go, you know?
I think sex is fun at every age.
Actually,
I really enjoy it. I love it with new people where we're like, what are we doing? I love it with 12 years later with a partner. Yeah.
I'd say any age, but I was not having fun with it when I was 25.
Yeah. I mean, I would go with that too. I would say I was at the height of enjoyment at 45.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to say 50 because my children were empty nesters basically, and listen, it gets better.
That's
Last and final question in one word or a few. What's the best thing about aging?
Wisdom and standing in your truth.
Building self-trust.
I would say collecting people. I just keep collecting great people along the way.
Being more comfortable with who I am.
Not giving two shits.
I'm going to say perspective, because it changes, and the older you get, the broader it gets. So perspective.
I like
Wow.
the collecting people. I like that.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Speaking
Yeah.
of that, thank you. Thank you all, people that I have collected over the years.
What a collection you have.
I
What a fine
know.
collection.
Whole collection. And you inspire, all of you inspire me in so many ways. So thank you for sharing this special birthday podcast with me, and to all of my other peeps out there who I've collected along the years. Thank you for listening. I hope you're listening. It's my birthday. Listen.
Happy birthday, Vanessa. We love you.
We love you,
Happy
birthday girl.
Happy birthday.
Welcome to the club.
And that's a wrap. Thank you, listeners, and our guest for sharing the space with us. If you don't want to miss our next episode and you'd like to follow our work, you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter at Voices Amped. Voices Amped is part of our arts activism initiative, Voices Amplified. Our team is me, Jenny Benavides, Vanessa Becker Weig, Ellie Clark, Dr. Margaret McGladry, and our intern and editor, Kennedy Johnson. If you have any questions that you'd like to hear from future guests, or if you ever have questions for us, hit us up on social media or email us on our website, voicesamplified.net. We'd love to hear from you. And remember, you can watch all of our interviews on YouTube if you search and subscribe to Voices Amplified. We'd like to thank Lauren Rourke for our podcast art, Tiffany DuPont Novak for our logo design, and Vanessa Davis for her beautiful underscore, I'm Doing Okay. You can follow her music at Songwriter Vanessa. We'll see you next time, everyone.
Voices Amped is generously sponsored by the Kentucky Foundation for Women. For more information about our guests, podcast content, or if you want to learn more about Voices Amplified, follow our advocacy work or support our 2021 Independence Campaign. You can visit our website voicesamplified.net or visit us on Facebook or Instagram. And remember, be curious, be courageous, take up space, and make some noise.